Yes. Well, good afternoon, listeners. Welcome to Men, Family, and Education Under Fire. We're under Go Radio, powering the voice of community and change station. Yes. I am your host, Dr. Horace Williams, and my special guest again is Miss Yo. Say good afternoon.
What's up, everybody?
How are you today? Woo, we've been on fire here, yo, lately. Oh, God is so good. Blessings.
Unbelievable.
All praise go to God this morning, this afternoon, and later on tonight. But I'm going to tell you, we're here today with this program, yo, and I'm so excited about this because we have touched upon some very, very interesting topics over the last few shows. And today what we want to do...
Forgiveness is crazy, man.
Oh, forgiveness. Oh, it's still fired up about
airwaves.
That. I've been talking about that, yo, for the last week. I mean, from Detroit to Chicago, back to Port Huron. Folks have been chiming in on that one. But today what we want to talk about, our show, we want to talk about, again, this is being Men, Family, and Education Under Fire. Today we're going to talk about some educational content.
Yes.
And I talked about earlier in some shows, preparing our children for academic success. And so today we want to talk about what are we doing with our children over the summer? Parents, come around, listen to these tips and techniques. We're going to talk about it. And I'm going to give you some old school advice. I'm going to give you some current advice because I raised 4 children. I have 4 grown children.
That's
and
right.
I used to have to figure out what am I going to do with my children over the summer period. Now, we know that school has recently let out within the last 4 or 5 weeks. Some of our kids are already in summer school.
Yep.
But what we want to do is address those needs for those parents that are probably challenged or having challenges. Because
they realize they don't have a plan for the summer.
Yeah, you don't have a plan for the summer. Now, I'm going to say this up front, and this is where we always start our show. We're going to put this out here. We're not placing blame, but we're taking responsibility.
There you go.
That's how we start this show. It's not about placing blame on anybody. It's about taking more responsibility. And parents out there, first thing we want to ask you, do you have a plan for the summer, educationally for your child? Some people are probably saying, no, not really. I just thought they'd go out and just go back up to school and go play. Nah, time is out for that playing. We need to get our children as smart as possible, as soon as possible. Summer is a great time for us to reinforce or build up where our children are weak academically and then challenge them. It doesn't have to be tedious. It should be fun. Instead of, say, for example, 3 or 4 different things, we're going to do 1 or 2. We're going to concentrate on 1 or 2. So let's talk about this real quickly. Now, there are already data out there, and you can look this up. It's from the Harvard Family of Education, which says if our children can read between the ages or the grades of 6 through 8, if they are proficient readers through those grade levels, they are more likely, 85% more likely to graduate high school. That means we don't have to worry about them when they get through that 9th to 12th grade. And if you have children in that 9th to 12th grade right now, you already know what I'm talking about.
Wow.
It's already some issues coming up with them academically. But the key to being proficient in anything, and we're talking about academics, is practice, practice, practice. So the first thing we want to ask you, parents,
that's good.
What have you done besides just send your child to summer school or involve them in some type of program? Think about that for a second. Now, if you have just sent them to summer school, that's a good start. But do you know where your child is currently reading? What level? Are they on grade level? When I say grade level, if they're in the 5th grade, can they read 5th grade material? If they're in the 6th grade, can they read 6th grade material? And if they're not, and if you know they're not, what are you doing to assist them? Because it's very important that parent, that you take the lead on this.
Because you can't get mad when they get in high school and they're not able to keep up, and you're trying to pay for a tutor and everything when you got now to get them ready to be successful later.
Absolutely.
You got to make the time.
And this is all about preparation. And again, we have to become selfless in terms of our children. So let me ask you this, parents. Have you heard your child read lately? Oh, that's beautiful. You must have your child read to you. Take this time out. Not only is good time for the kid, but it's good time for you as well as a parent, so you know where they are.
Because it shouldn't be a surprise when you go to a parent-teachers conference and somebody tells you that your kid is flunking X, Y, and Z, or they're struggling, because you should be the first person to discover that.
You should be the first person to discover it. You should already say that we're working on that. I'm aware of that. But if you're not, let me suggest this. Parents, first of all, understand that reading is really fundamental. They used to say that when we were growing up. Reading is fundamental. And if your child can read, your child can unlock his or her potential to the umpteenth degree. The umpteenth. That's an old school term. Umpteenth. That means 10 by powers of 10 exponentially.
Beyond measure.
Beyond measure.
Wow.
So what we want to do is challenge the parents. Parents, first of all, sit down with your child to see where they're reading. If they're stumbling through words, do they understand what they're reading? That's called comprehension. And if they are not doing so well, I'm going to recommend that you purchase some books. Go with them and purchase books. Now, there's a few ways that you can get some reading in as well. And I'm going to go back to the purchase later. Go to the library. Okay. Seek out your local library. As a matter of fact, that should be a project, or that should be an event that all parents should do. Take your kid down to the local library and get a library card.
That's right.
One of the best cards that you can carry on your person is a library card.
That's right.
Get your child signed up for the library. There's a lot of free stuff that's going on in the library that we don't take advantage of. For instance, you have free use of the computers. Right? You have designated areas that you can go and study and read to your child. You have a plethora of resources at the library. But that's not the only thing that we could do. But those are just some short examples. And parents, what we also have to do is make sure that you don't pressure your child if you find out that they have a deficiency in reading.
Can you also too, Doc, because I know you've worked in schools for some time, because I think sometimes people have to know the benefit and the consequences to not doing some of the things and making time for some of the things we're talking about today. So tell them what high school behavior looks like for kids who don't know how to read. Because, see, parents are sometimes taken by surprise. I don't know why they're acting like this. I had no idea. They won't listen to me. Because when kids can't read, that deficiency shows up in other areas of their life. And it's going to cost you more later than it will cost you now.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things that I have seen, and I've dealt with behavior in high school, especially for those children or those students that can't read or are not proficient in math, they become distractions in the class. Their behavior, they don't pay attention as well. They distract other students. They tend to talk a lot when the teacher is talking. They tend
because they're not comfortable with the subject matter because they can't read. So they're doing other things.
And then, too,
disciplinary issues come up.
And let's talk about this before we get to the discipline. One of the reasons that they act out in schools because they're embarrassed about the fact that they can't read.
So it affects their self-esteem.
It affects their self-esteem, and they know it. And then, say, for instance, when they're asked to read aloud and they know they can't read, they become offended. They become embarrassed. So they utilize other skills to be put out of class instead of to participate in class in the reading. So we have to monitor that at these younger levels. And that's that's starting really at the 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade to the 6th grade. Parents, trust me, we need to be aware of where our children are academically, especially reading. Now, the behavior part comes in, especially in high school, because that's the time.
Because they pick with other kids when they can't read. Anything to get out of being uncomfortable in class.
Absolutely. And the teacher has a tough time trying to get to that student's center. When I say center, that's that point of the students, that aha moment. I get it.
Okay.
But when students are not equipped with basic skills, and the reason I'm going to use reading, we're going to talk about math and science, but reading goes across all of those curriculums.
That's right.
You have to read in math. You have to read in science. And then we talk about that comprehension. So when your child has a deficiency in reading, that affects those other core subjects: social studies, science, math. All of those subjects require reading. And we're not going to even talk about those elective classes that a student may need to read. But now, getting back to why this is so important. Behavioral, students tend to understand that they're going to get teased. They feel, if I can't read, I'm going to get teased.
That's right.
I'm going to be the kid that they...
So I don't even really want to come to school.
I don't even
So
really
it
come to
also
school.
leads to skipping. Because if I'm not in the classroom, I'm not uncomfortable, which means I don't have to deal with it. I'm more comfortable out here because I don't get embarrassed.
Absolutely, because I'm more comfortable in the street where I can use this street.
Because no one's asking me to read.
Nobody's reading.
Yeah.
You know, they're not running around there. If you're out there being a thug or whatever you want to call those young folks out there that's not doing it, thugs ain't carrying no books.
That's right.
I don't see no thugs carrying books.
That's right.
But this is what we want to do to make our children better. This is all about becoming better.
And you know also firsthand from some of the work you've done in the past and some of the folks you've been aligned with, that if there was a study done, and they have done studies around this, around people who are incarcerated, and the number of them who are illiterate, and how this has impacted the decisions that they make that led them to incarceration.
Absolutely. And that is big. And I don't have the data in front of me, but I have read where
they've done it.
The prisoners
said,
and they have admitted that
that's right,
they did not understand how to read. They weren't good students. They wish they would have listened more to those who were trying to encourage them to stay in school and do more reading. And now, fortunately for some of them, they have a lot of time on their hands.
So now they can focus on their education.
They can focus on their education. But we don't want to take our children to that point where you have to get incarcerated before you learn how to read. So parents, what we have to do during the summer months, first of all, do not allow your children to stay around the house and do nothing.
That's good.
Do not allow that in the summer. No,
it's got to be something. Chores.
They
should be doing something every single day. Besides opening your refrigerator up all day and night.
Absolutely.
You remember your parents saying, get out that kitchen?
Get out the kitchen. Absolutely.
Quit going in the refrigerator.
Get out that kitchen. The
same thing that was in there 15 minutes ago is still in there now. Or not.
My friend's parents put a lock on their refrigerator.
Hey, I seen it.
That's old school. I remember they say, boy, all you do is eat and sleep. And he said, okay, Dad, but what we want to do, this is a different era. Our children,
it's different. We used to have to ask for how many cookies we could have. I see kids go in and get a whole sleeve. I'd be like,
oh, they got it going on if they can get a whole sleeve.
Remember?
You could never get a whole sleeve.
You used to have to ask.
Oh, not a whole sleeve. We wouldn't get.
We had a liberty to just go in the kitchen and eat up everything.
No, they couldn't
it wasn't
do that
us
anymore. We couldn't do that anymore. But parents, talking about how can we make our children better academically? First of all, again, I'm going to say practice, practice, practice. Get a book for them. There are books in the dollar store. If you are familiar with the dollar store, I hear people at dollar store. I dare y'all don't act like don't turn your nose up to the dollar store. You done been in some too. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is look for that literature that could be exciting to the kids, and then we want to challenge them with something. And parents, I'm going to also tell you this. You take the time out to read to your children as well. Reading to your children is good. So even right now, example, I have a 3-year-old granddaughter. I read to her every opportunity I get. And I see her once a weekend, Saturdays, Friday through Saturday. And matter of fact, we read something today. But we have to get better at that. If we want our children to be proficient academically, have to become much better. Right. Now, there's some other things that we can do. We can send our kids to something called educational camps. Okay, what's the educational camp? Educational camp is normally 3 to 4 hours during the day. It's a half a day where they work on academic games to increase or improve them in science. It could be in math. It could be in reading. And we also want to give them something which we call a pleasant academic experience. Yeah. More learning goes on when we make it fun. When we make education fun for our children, that's when they tend to do better in school.
That's good.
Now, we can also talk about sports camps. Sports camps are good for children in the summer because it teaches more than just sports. It teaches discipline, right? It teaches how to have patience.
That's good.
Right? It also teaches kids to follow instructions. A lot of times we don't realize when your kids play sports, they have to follow instructions.
That's right.
There is normally a format or a structure around the coach, the player, the assistant coach. In that relationship, there is always some type of structure. So during the summer, parents, we can also help our children academically by giving them or putting them in positions for more structure. Now, we can also visit, if your kids are appropriate or ready, I'm going to say 10th, 11th, 12th grade, visit a college. Don't wait for the college tour.
Oh, that would be perfect for the summer.
Down to a local college.
That's right.
Just walk them around.
That's for free.
And that's free. You can get them ready for that environment. You tell them, okay, in 3 or 4 years, you'll be ready to come to this college.
That's right.
It could be the community college, right? It could be a 4-year university.
That's right.
It doesn't cost you anything to walk them around. Take them to some of the educational places in college. Show them what a college library looks like. Tell them this is why I took you to the local library. Good. So as you get older, you can be ready for
and they can make the connection.
And you can make a connection there. Now, the activities for your child has to be age appropriate. Now, which means that I don't want you to take a 3rd and 4th grader to something that's going on in high school because they can't relate to it right now. I want you to put your child in an activity or program that's age appropriate. Now, if your child, say, is in the 5th grade and you want to expose them to 6th and 7th grade stuff, I think that'll be appropriate because you want them to aspire and see how those children are doing it on the next level. But parents, again, you have to be the leaders here. Take a little time out to nurture your investment. Your children are your investment.
That's good.
Okay? Now, let's talk about spending more time working on the areas that your child may be weak in academically. And a lot of times we go past that, but we don't focus on it. We must pay attention to those weaker areas of their learning, because those are the areas they need help in.
That's good, because sometimes people don't want to acknowledge the truth, and you can deny it, but school going to start back up again. It's going to show up.
School going to start back up.
It's going to cost you in the end.
And your child is going to be behind again, and this is what we don't want them to do. So parents, as we prepare to close for this show, preparing children for academic success. Number one, reading. The most important thing that we can teach our children is how to read. Purchase books. Go to the library. See if you can get books lent out.
Ask for books for your birthday.
Ask for books for your birthday. Because if we don't, parents, our children are going to be in the same position that we find them in the past. So we want to change that.
I love it.
Okay? So with that being said, I'm going to tell you again, if you joined us late today, we're talking about preparing our kids for academic success. Again, this is Men, Family, and Education Under Fire.
Awesome.
And I'm your host, Dr. Horace Williams.
Yes.
We're on the Go
Radio, powering the voice of community and change.
We love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Stay tuned with us. Stay with us, and we have some more exciting things we're going to talk about in the upcoming future. Have a great weekend.
Have a good night.